Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, senior editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for a very jubilant post-game podcast. That's right, myself, Brian Anthony Davis, and Dave Schofield are all here. I pulled out all the stops today, guys. If you're listening in audio, I brought out the old Believer shirt. Brian had it on the other day. This is like rarefied air for me when I bring this T-shirt out, but it worked. The Steelers win 20-19, and what a dramatic game, what a dramatic finish. We're going to break it all down for you. Let's bring Brian Anthony Davis on. Brian, what's up?
This podcast is sponsored by Katrina and the Waves. I'm walking on sunshine.
I love it. Dave Schofield, what's up? How's it going?
I don't know. Brian's doing a great Wilson impersonation where he's just barely peeking up from the screen on his computer. My goodness. I had a crazy tweet that I said, what a difference a week makes. I'm pacing and jumping around my family room watching this game, where last week I was just sitting there with my towel over my face. What just an opportunity. I had the same emotions sitting in the same spot, watching the same TV, doing the same thing with my Christmas tree up, like the Christmas Day game several years ago, going crazy. My wife can't watch the game with me, but yet it was on our TV upstairs, and I hear them screaming upstairs. The family was watching without me because they know they can't watch with me, because I'd like, be quiet, I want to hear. And they were enjoying it as much as I was. What a game.
Yeah, like my family's eating dinner in the dining room. I'm in the living room, and I'm clapping and yelling, TJ, get him, get him. The kids, I hear the kids say during dinner, like, Dad's talking to the TV.
I'd scream at the TV all the time.
He does that a lot. That's nothing new. Let's get Eamon's tip here. $4.99. He says, OMG. That's the exact feeling that a lot of us feel after that game, where it was just, there was so much ebb and flow, ups and downs. Let's get another one up here. Philip. I haven't heard from Philip in a while. He said he gave us $10. He really liked what I saw out of the O-line as a whole tonight against a very stout Ravens D. LeGlue was the glue, it felt like, on many big Najee Harris runs. Hashtag rock to Denaj. Also, Deontay looking like a true wide receiver one. Thank you for the tip, and some really good points there. We're going to talk about a lot of these players like John LeGlue, who really were thrust into the lineup earlier than most would have wanted, but still played well. Guys, let's do knee-jerk reactions first. Brian, we'll start with you after the game. What do you think?
This was not an ugly win. When we talk about close wins, it's ugly win. This is a team who stepped up, who caught fire, and looked very good against a team with a really tough defense.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's we have Brian there. That's good. Dave, go ahead and do yours real quick before we get to some super chats. Go ahead. My biggest knee-jerk reaction was I had to instantly text my sister, who was at the game with my nephew, and say, you were at a game. This was a great game to be there. Heinz Field. I mean, I heard a report before the game started, an hour before kickoff, you could get tickets for $50. I saw
that. They were under 60,000. You know what? Guess what? This team, yes, did some people they'll want to still poo-poo on it. Oh, they gave up the touchdown at the end. I'm still really mad for their first long play on that last drive, that TJ Watt got mugged on that one worse than the other one that they declined, and it wasn't called. I know there was really some tough officiating in this game. I'm really glad they called the obvious pass interference. It would have been an interception. It would have been like this officiating crew to let that go and let it play out. I was really upset with the officials, but guess what? The Steelers overcame, and they had to. The defense had to show up and win their version of 7 shots after the offense just won their version of 7 shots. And that's how you want to roll into this.
Don't get me started on the officiating. Do not get me started on the officiating. Evgeny Crosby on the $4.99. He says the mobile quarterback got sacked 7 times and the statue not once. How about that? Interesting thought there. Just an interesting thought. Thank you for the tip, by the way, Evgeny. Wilson Pava gives us $9.99. Says, let's freaking go. Classic win. Statement game. Those refs were awful. Ben looked almost vintage. Is LeGlue the new starter? Well, the position he's playing, I wouldn't say he's the starter because of who will be coming back. Hopefully off injured reserve sooner than later, and that's Kevin Dotson. So we'll keep that in mind. Next one. Go ahead.
I will say this. He played so well. Now, granted, they weren't scheming for him or anything. We
Yeah.
weren't expecting John LeGlue to be in there, but he played so well. You know, Trey Turner's only here 1 year. I think LeGlue can now have his name in there when it comes to
I'm just
next
thinking
season.
about the glue is the
LeGlue.
glue.
He's the glue that holds it together. All right. Sorry. I'll let you keep rolling
That's
through
okay.
the super chat.
Sean Manning gives us $2. His TJ is up to 16 sacks, which ties the Steelers franchise record. And how many games have they played so far? 12. So it is 12, right? Yeah. 6, 5, and 1. I can do simple math. Thank you, Dave.
Yep.
And
Yes.
And he's missed 2 of them
he's
completely.
missed 2 of them. So all these
more
people
than the
that say
equivalent of one just from injury.
All these people that say all these rules are getting broken because of the 17th game. He's done it in 12.
No.
Okay. Anyways, Brian, did you want to talk about that at all?
TJ?
Well, yeah, you had brought it up before we went on the air.
Oh, yeah. So this is amazing. He not only has he tied the record this early in his this early in the season, he's really close to Debo's team record too, which is something that with another good season next year, he's probably going to do that because he's I think 14 away from that. And I know we don't care about records right now, but just to see what he's doing and what his inclusion in this defense does for the entire team.
Dave, you want to say something? Yeah, I do want to say something. It's just a correction because my buddy Chris brought this up in the live chat. Good to see you, Chris. That this is dumb. That busted RPO where Ben ran forward and dove back to the line of scrimmage
counts as a sack.
They gave the Ravens a sack on that.
Okay.
So technically he got sacked once. But I'm not counting that as a sack because that was Ben just making the best out of the play that he had.
They can have the sack. The Steelers will take the win. How about that? KXM Scary. I'm not sure if I did that correctly. Gave us $5 and just said, "Let's go." Thank you very much for the tip. We appreciate it as always. Kathy Ford, longtime listener. Good to see you, Kathy. Says it was just me and her good karma. That's right.
Yeah,
I think she was at the
me
game.
was at this game. I told her to go meet my sister,
yeah,
but I don't know if she did or not.
That's awesome. There were a lot of people that hit me up on Twitter. So I'm going to the game, not expecting much. Like, I hope you get to see a good game. Like, whatever. There you go. Got to see a classic. X Eddie B gives us 2 Canuck bucks as Ben is allergic to the middle of the field. Okay. Womp womp.
Yeah. Where was that? Wait a second. Where was that throw on the first touchdown to Deontay Johnson?
Down the middle.
Oh, that was the middle of the field.
The key conversion to Pat Fryermuth, middle of the field. Anyways, Arthur Steele, $4.99 says, Pittsburgh sets us up every time we give up on them. Then they reel us back in, savor every Ben moment we have left. This win feels great, and the refs can suck it. I agree with the refs comment. Absolutely. Eamon gives us another $4.99 says, Ben rushed. He's all in for this season. Let's go. That's probably coming off of the news of over the weekend with him basically saying he's done. Cask is $9.99. What a Steelers thing to do. I called it. I told y'all they're going to win the game. They're going to bring us right back. And then they have a short week against Minnesota. I don't want to talk about that right now either. Yeah, I want to bring this up. This isn't a super chat, but Jeffrey Benedict says Dave, Jeff, and Brian all picked the Steelers to win this game in our staff picks. And everyone always, no, Dave didn't. I did. No. Brian did. He changed his pick when TJ Watt came when he was off the COVID list.
I started to feel like the Steelers were going to win this game, and I was afraid that if I did that, it was just bad.
Andrew Wilbar, he picked the team to win. I think it's the first time he's gotten one right this year.
Yeah.
Let's go with Monster 19, $4.99 is his big win to get some swagger back. Here we go. There you go.
Yeah. All right, let's do this. Let's break it down.
Chris Cubbage gives us $5. Sorry, Dave. Everybody have fun tonight. Everybody Wang Chung tonight. Everybody Wang Harms tonight. And Brad Jewett gives us $4.99. Says, I know we're going to get to grades, but I'm really eager to hear the grade for Tomlin tonight. Allow this to be your transition. Huge win, fellas. Thank you, Brad, as always, for the tip and for being a loyal listener. So let's talk about Tomlin. That was what Brad wanted to talk about. So, Dave, I'm going to start with you. Everyone wanted to bash Tomlin last week. What do you do for this week? I mean, I'm sure they were pumping music at practice for Chase, but other than that, what do you think?
He put him in pads the one day he was allowed to. He explained that in his post-game press conference. Basically did all that he could, got him back focused, and now the offense still didn't go over 50 yards on the game until less than 2 minutes left in the half. but the defense, who looked like they, gave up a 99.5-yard drive, but still got enough with the interception, enough with the sacks, enough to keep them around in the game. And Coach Tomlin just had this group believing that what they could do. I mean, my goodness, they have John LeGlue and Montravius Adams. Montravius Adams started. John LeGlue played all but 3 snaps. And these guys coming in, the next man up, and the standard is the standard. You could say, oh, that's just Tomlin talking. These 2 guys did it. This team was ready to play this week.
Brian, your thoughts on Tomlin? Kello Witherspoon had an amazing play in this game too, and he started. Montravius Adams has been on the team for basically 4.5, 5 days, and he's getting the start. So, it's just, he rallied him, and he, like Dave said, he talked about the possibility of, when he talked in that Tuesday press conference about the possibility of a different dress, or I don't know how he said it, we're going to be dressed differently this week. And they're saying, could we assume that could be pads? He's like, yes, possibly. And he knew all along that that's what was going to happen. I bet you it felt like boot camp this week inside that Steelers practice bubble. And if it wasn't, I'd be absolutely surprised, but they were men on a mission tonight, and it felt really good to watch. And it shows that there's a reason that these 2 coaches, even Wang Harbs and Tomlin, have played each other for 15 straight seasons.
It's pretty crazy. And Sean Manahan gives us $5, says Wang wanged it, and it feels so good. And he's talking about Wang Harbs doing his wangy thing. I'm sure I love Brian. You put in your bold predictions that his face looks like he smelled the worst fart ever or something like that. You phrased it something like that.
And we got it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And let's go. Arthur Steele gives us $1.99. He says, Dunge, you made a great point. Baltimore are the Steelers of last year, meaning they are getting some breaks, things like that. Luck runs out sometimes. Tyler Bashaw gives us $1.99. Great team win tonight. Absolutely. Thank you very much for the tip. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. Tyler W gives us $5. Ben is now 3rd all time with 39 fourth quarter comebacks. He is only 2 behind Tom Brady and 4 behind Peyton Manning. He is clutch. I'll remember this one. It was fitting. It was fitting on a weekend when, for me, I put out a tweet when I was reading the comments on the article that Dave wrote for the website, behindthesteelcurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, about Ben's, the report that he was basically saying this is my last year. And there were all these Steeler fans in there that were just bashing the living daylights out of Roethlisberger. So I took to Twitter and was like, how are people doing this? Like, how can you put only 2021 and maybe the end of 2020 and not realize like the career that he's had? And I feel like this was just a great way for Ben to say, like, I had a really good game. And let's start right there with Ben Roethlisberger. He finishes 21 of 31, 236 yards, a 7.6 average. He threw 2 touchdowns. Probably should have had 3. Was sacked that one time that Dave mentioned earlier with a rating of 111.8. Gentlemen, you don't have to give a grade, but let's talk about some BTR right now. Brian, we'll start with you.
Kind of vintage Ben in this game. I loved watching him play in this game. He was fired up on the sidelines, even when the defense was up there. I really loved watching him the entire way. I thought his play on the field was spectacular. The play calling seemed pretty good, the way they mixed in the run and the pass. And he has that, remember that Wi-Fi connection that a certain number 84 used to always talk about? Well, I tell you what, it's fiber Wi-Fi. It's the best possible. It's better than mine. And with Deontay Johnson and Ben Johnson, the best of Canada. With Ben Roethlisberger and Deontay Johnson, there is a great connection right now, and I love it.
See, when you said fiber, I was thinking maybe you thought that the connection needed to be a little bit more regular. I was looking at it from a dietary standpoint.
Oh my gosh. Dave, why don't you talk about BTR then?
What is there not talking about BTR here? This was vintage Ben Roethlisberger against the Ratbirds. It was, the offense wasn't going well early on. I mean, look at the difference of I think it was the first drive of the second half versus the first drive of the game. 3 Najee runs, they came up 1 yard short, had to punt. The other one, it was 3 Najee runs, they got the first down by 1 yard. That's the difference in everything as you go, just those couple yards. But Ben Roethlisberger, he didn't get choked. I mean, he went over and let Ike Hilliard hear it. Apparently, he was upset on that play where the receivers didn't know what to do on the hot route. But he was, I'm not going to say he was mad, or I'm going to say he was passionate. We saw a passionate Ben Roethlisberger go out there, do what he needed to do, and said, let's go win this game.
Yeah, I thought Ben played one of his best. I would say it was a very well-rounded game. He was hitting on some deep passes. I thought that the throw that Deontay Johnson dropped might have been one of his best throws all year. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of off his back throw. It's
almost like Johnson wasn't ready for such a good throw.
Right on the money. It looked like Johnson was expecting contact from a defensive back or something of that nature. Ben played great. He deserves to be applauded. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But nonetheless, there's still going to be people out there that are going to criticize it. Like Louis Damper gives us $4.99. He says, as the apparent hater among us fans, Ben deserves this, and it made me happy to see it. A meaning game. Draft spot took a hit, though. Ugh, Louis, come on, man. And then he says, pick Pickett. I don't want to hear about Kenny Pickett right now. Steel Dog.
Some Kenny Pickett, but he's not on the Steelers. So what are we talking about?
Steel Dog 88 gives us $2 thoughts on Adams' first game with the Steelers. We're going to get to that. We'll get to Adams. And he was obviously a bright spot with all things considered. Grand Elder 77B gives us $2. He's got a W over. Sorry about that. Over my older sister's Ravens. Feels good. We all live in Maryland. This is a big win for us. Okay. Yes. Well, this is a huge win for us. And Philip gives us another $5. Does this team really look tonight like they all watched Ryan Clark chew them out on replay like a Clockwork Orange skit? It's not over till it hits doubles, all zeros. So, and Mike Tomlin actually in his postgame press conference did say that he hopes that some of the elder statesmen of the Steelers, he's talking about those gold jacket guys, as he put it, that they appreciate the effort and the bounce back from this team. So keep that in mind. Alex Flores gives us $5. I'm giving $5 just to say this. Jackson and the Ratbirds are frauds. They are not what their record says. I think we've all said that, but at the same time, it's easier said than done to beat a team like that because he's a weapon. Robert Robles, I hope I said that correctly, gives us $4.99. I've only known one Steelers quarterback in the 18 years of me being a Steelers fan. I'm not really going to miss him. I'm really going to miss him. I pulled an Aditi. I'm really going to miss him when he decides to hang it up. BTSC hashtag team bad. There you go. Brian's fan club is in attendance. All right. So let's go to the running game. Najee Harris finishes 21 of 71, 3.4 average with a long of 13. Benny Snell football that showed up 2 carries, 13 yards with a long of 8. The Steelers rushed it 25 times, 85 yards, a 3.4 yard average, no touchdowns. But gentlemen, what'd you think about the running game for the Steelers? Dave, we'll start with you this time.
I think that the running game, especially early on, they did it enough to keep the Ravens honest rather than just try to chuck it 50 times with knowing that the Ravens had a good run defense. They ran it enough to where they could actually use some play action pass and it'd be effective. And then not only that, they were able to run the ball late, both with Najee Harris and Benny Snell Jr. I want to look it up real quick and see what was their rushing stats in the fourth quarter. How about 48 of those yards came in the fourth quarter?
48 85?
Yeah, out of the 85. So or at least that's what they have here on the media release. So that's big, being able to run the ball at the key point of the game late whenever you really need to get it done. I was really happy. And yeah, I mean, Benny Snell, he ran hard. If you're only going to get 2 carries, you got to play hard. And he did.
Yeah. Brian, thoughts on the running game?
Wow, so proud of this running game. Now, I'm going to talk about Snell first. Exactly what Dave said. Had those 2 carries, but when he came in, when he got the ball the second time after his first carry, I'm like, I have no problem with this because it seemed like everybody was fired up. That line was fired up. He was fired up. and you
line.
had a lot of optimism at that point. But let's talk about, somebody mentioned, I think it was Bill Hillgrove, because on the way home I was listening to it. They said not the best game from Najee Harris, and I got to disagree with that, because he was getting so many yards after contact that it was incredible. Even in the first half, the second half, that guy was running hard. And I know we use hard a little too much sometimes, but man, he was just pushing. He was getting stopped after a 3-yard gain that became 9-yard gains and 8-yard gains. And you're like, wow, this guy is really, he is really into the running game, and he could be something very special when that line gets cleaned up and he gets even more maturity. And I think he's a very mature back right now, but he gets just more playing time and more experience in the NFL game, but he's something special.
Like Dave said, the Steelers ran the ball well enough to set up other things, and that's important. It was really important that they weren't just hitting their head against the wall for 1, for 2. They were actually getting 3-4 yards a clip at times. Those 48 yards in the second half were noticeable. It's been a while since we've seen that from the Steelers running game. Really, really good to see. Let's go to the pass catchers now. Deontay Johnson led the Steelers with 8 catches for 105 yards on 11 targets, 2 touchdowns with a long of 29. Chase Claypool, 2 catches, 52 yards on 3 targets. Najee Harris, 5 for 36. Pat Freiermuth, 3 for 26. And Zach Gentry, 2 for 10. Clutch third down conversion from Gentry. But I really want to talk about, before we get
Don't forget Ray's 1 for 7.
That's true. Should have been more. That bogus,
it was
overturned call.
Oh,
anyways,
you can't overturn that.
I want to talk about Claypool just for a second. So he had that big catch and run for 40 yards. It was his long. Yep. Then he kind of disappeared and didn't do anything. They showed him on the sideline, and the Steelers were using James Washington more in the passing game. I wanted to get your all thoughts on that. Dave, we'll start with you.
I mean, I wasn't sure if he was dinged up or something at some point. I don't know that was it, or he
went back into the game.
Yeah. Or if they're like, you're still dealing with the toe, or if it was just, hey, we've got other guys we can use with what we're wanting to do right now. I mean, especially, I don't know. Like I know the one time, I don't know how many snaps he had, but Cody White came in a couple times early because they were running the ball when he's a really good blocking wide receiver. So I don't know. I don't want to get into it too much. I don't want to read too much into it, but I'm sure we'll eventually hear some kind of report.
It was curious. That's all I'll put. Brian, what do you think?
You know me, I love to read into stuff all the time. And I'll actually say I don't think he's completely in the doghouse, but there's a part of me that thinks it's like, hey, Mr. Spokesman for the team that was not invited to be the spokesman here. You know what? Maybe you should sit and see what smart players do that keep their mouth shut. That's kind of what I thought was going on there. I still think he's so valuable to this team, but really in this game, Deontay Johnson was on fire, and they were also trying to change some things up by throwing to a guy like Ray. And that's, like Jeff said, that should have worked. It did work, and then it was taken away.
Well, and the thing is, too, is that Marlon Humphrey does typically travel with who they deem to be the number one weapon. And the Steelers said, Ben Roethlisberger said it leading up to this game, that they expected him to travel with Chase Claypool, which meant that Deontay Johnson was going to see more.
I thought they said they thought he was going to go with Deontay.
They asked Ben if they thought he was going to go with Chase, and he said, well, we'll see. That's what they're planning for. But,
okay.
Well, it doesn't
Good.
matter.
We'll just throw it to the other guy.
But let's talk about the pass catchers as a whole, Dave. What were your thoughts on all the pass catchers for the Steelers?
All the pass catchers for the Steelers. I thought, other than the Deontay Johnson drop, which, it wasn't like, oh, that was a terrible, easy pass to catch on a short route to but he still should have caught it. And it was like his only drop of the season, maybe a second. Other than that, I just felt like when the ball was when Ben could throw them the ball, other than the times they had the miscommunications of who was supposed to be going where on a hot route, they were coming through it. I thought they did a nice job just catching the ball and getting the yards they needed to get. I don't have any complaints about them.
Brian, any thoughts on the pass catchers outside of Claypool?
No, actually, I'm going to give them an A if we were grading, because there's nothing really egregious from the pass catchers that I recall in this game where I was like, oh, come on. I do recall when Dave mentioned when he went over and when Ben went over and talked to Ike, and then turned around and really gave the business to James Washington there too. It looked like, man, he was really chewing out James Washington as well. But that's what Ben saw, not what I saw. So I was thinking in this game that the receivers did look good from my eye test.
Thought there were some really timely catches from the receiving core. Deontay Johnson had a couple. Zach Gentry brought him up.
Yeah.
Those were big conversions, and those came at timely moments. So kudos to the pass catchers. Thought they had a good game. Philip gives us another $2. Saw Canada's influence in the game with the pistol. Let's talk about the play calling a little bit. Dave, what were your thoughts on the play calling today?
I'd have to go back and break it down even more. I had no problems with the play calling. I mean, I know some people early might not like some of them. Of course, the Ravens are bad against the pass and the Steelers run the ball and punt the first drive. This was the opposite of what we've been seeing of the Steelers. It was the Steelers are good for their first drive or two to move the ball, and then they can't do anything else the rest of the game, was what had been the theme more recently. This one, 3 and out the first couple. Then, I mean, at the end, it seemed like they could do whatever they wanted to do. So I'm not saying it was great, but I'm not saying it was terrible.
Yeah, I thought once they settled in, they definitely were able to had the whole play sheet available, put it that way. Brian, what are your thoughts on Canada today?
I thought Canada called a nice game. It was just like Dave, where I saw nothing that made me want to scream. Even in those first two series, I thought they were trying to soften up this team as well on defense, because they were trying to establish the run and then kill them with the pass when they could.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Canada, from everything that you read about him and, his philosophies, is that he uses a lot of stuff in the first half to set up things for the second half. So the Steelers scored 17 points in the fourth quarter. The lulls early on, I mean, my goodness, they ran 6 plays in the vast majority of the first half. No first downs in the first half. Like, that was atrocious, and they deserved every bit of booing. If they had the Boo Birds were out at Heinz Field, they deserved it. But at the same time, there are 4 quarters in a game. You do have a chance for redemption, and that includes coaches like the play caller. And so I thought they rebounded well. The last thing we remember is a good thing. So that also helps. Alida Bernard.
That's Alida.
Alida. I'm sorry. Alida Bernard gives us $2. Has any thoughts on Presley Harvin's punt? Well, there was the beauty that was down to like the 1 foot line. And then that resulted in a 99-yard drive for a touchdown, the only touchdown the Steelers gave up. But then there were a couple others really lousy punts. Dave, go ahead. You want to say something?
Oh, I have to say this. The whole reason I know how to pronounce that name correctly, that is my sister that was at the game.
Nice.
So she actually even chipped in some cash.
Nice.
That 64-yard punt was a thing of beauty. It was after a not so good one. And then, my goodness, they had a 25-yard punt where they got the ball at the 25. It's the consistency factor there with him. But I mean, you can see what he can do, but you can also see that it's sometimes just not going to be there play after play.
Yeah. Brian, any thoughts on Big Press?
You know what? He's a rookie, and we're now expecting a shank a week, it seems. But that beauty was a beauty, and then next thing you know, they go 99 yards with it. 99
yards. Yeah, that was the thing. They wasted it. They wasted one of the best punts we'd seen for so long, and they wasted it.
But there's just not a lot of consistency with Big Press. There wasn't consistency with Jordan Berry either. So, I mean, if I'm comparing the two of these guys, I'm thinking that, you still have the more of a chance for Big Press to boom the heck out of him more than Berry would have. But that's for next year. We're riding with Press this year.
Yeah, for sure. Still consistency. It's all I want out of a punter, whether it's Presley Harvin the third, whether it's anyone else. That's all I want is consistency. Sean Manahan gives us $2. Says Claypool had 26 yards per catch. Yes, that's what the average comes down to. But at the same time, if he's missing assignments, not doing what he's supposed to on hot reads and stuff like that, then that could lead to him not being on the field as much, which is, I think, what we saw. Let's lastly talk about the offensive line. They only surrendered one sack, which clearly was questionable. Ben ran, got tackled behind the line of scrimmage. Dave, you're an offensive line guy. What do you think about the offensive line in this game?
When you notice the offensive line is when they're not getting the job done. That's when you pay attention to them. Were you really noticing the offensive line in this game? No. Did you notice, if you listened to Tony Romo and didn't mute him when he was talking about the run plays that he really liked when they just drove forward and handed the ball off to Najee? Those were fantastic. And that was, so those were great. Leglue stepped in a big spot there and played well. I think all in all, the offensive line did a nice job. I don't think they had a penalty in the game. I don't think there was a hold. I don't think there was a false start. So that's another thing to commend them for. I thought, even though, they're like, oh, well, the run game wasn't that great. They were going against the number 2 run defense in the league, and they were still able to run the ball. So, some better than they had the last couple weeks. So kudos to the offensive line. I think they did a real nice job.
Brian, thoughts on the O-line?
Yeah, phenomenal. And I got to say, Dan Moore Jr., when he went down, I got scared because I'm like, oh, we cannot lose this guy. Even though he is a rookie and he has some growing pains, I thought he had one block in the first half that was incredible.
Yeah, I thought the offensive line played extremely well. In all things considered, no Dotson, still have the rookies in there. The interior of the offensive line was not looking good when BJ Finney was in there. Leglue comes in, all of a sudden they're getting some push. It was good to see. It was really good to see, and they also provided Roethlisberger enough time to deliver passes. So yeah, he was hit. I don't know, Dave, do you have the QB hits up for the Ravens?
Sorry,
I got it.
You're taking care of this. Yeah, I took care of one spam. You take care of this spam. QB hits for the Ravens.
Only 3.
3 times. And really one of them was that sack where he dove forward on the play that the receiver didn't turn around in time on the RPO.
All right, so that's enough of the offense. We're going to be talking about the defense in part 2. If you're watching live on Facebook or on YouTube, don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere. And then when we come back, if you're on the podcast side, go to part 2. We'll be talking about the defense and more final thoughts. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to the second part of the Steelers postgame podcast. I'm Jeff Hartman, senior editor behind thesteelcurtain.com. Joining me is Dave Schofield. Brian Anthony Davis will be back, trying to get his connection queued up a little bit better. But we had talked about the offensive part 1. Part 2, we're talking about the defense. Before we do that, I know Dave Dixon gives us $5. If you see a comment from him.
I'm trying to find it. If he puts another one in there, I'll bring it up.
Yeah, for sure. Philip gives us another $2. His Steelers fans chanting, refs, you suck, LOL. Yeah, that was bad. It was bad. It was bad enough that they deserve every bit of the boo birds, for sure. Urban Wedge gives us 10. Is that a pound or is that a euro? I don't know. Says, remember seeing 2.5 sacks, but TJ recorded with 3.5 tonight, now equal Debo's all-time single season sack record for the Steelers, right? And he's only played 9.25 games. That's like a Dave super chat with all those numbers and decimals.
Yeah. You like that? That's right up my alley. Hey, look what I found.
There you go. Dave says Tomlin's postgame, no music at practice comment was very funny. BTSE is numero uno in my Spotify rap. Thank you, Dave. Couldn't comment on my super chat. Love you guys. Go Steelers. Thank you very much. Tyler W gives us $2. Watt takes the NFL sack lead 16 to Helmet Guys 14.
Helmet Guys. Love it. Yes.
I know who you're talking about. All right. So let's talk about the defense now, Dave. Which way do you want to start with this? I'm trying to think about this. So let's talk about Lamar Jackson's numbers first, because containing him is a unique challenge. 23 of 37, 253 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, a red zone interception by Minkah Fitzpatrick, was sacked 7 times for an 80.1 rating. Now, Lamar Jackson also had 8 carries for 55 yards. He led the Ravens in rushing, 6.9 yard average with a long of 13. So, what do you think about the defense going up against Lamar Jackson?
I think, well, because you got to look at both aspects of it, both his running and his passing. I think there was times that they did all right. They made him have to make play after play after play after play after play in order to get in either field goal range or get in a chance to score. They didn't give up the big play, and even though they were giving up long third downs constantly the whole game, and it was so frustrating, they still never gave up the huge chunk plays, except maybe in the last drive when they were playing a little bit too soft. And I mean, look at how many of those yards came on that last drive. You have to go back and look at that. My goodness, I'm looking, trying to add them up. That it was at least 50 some yards on that last drive. So they made him have to do it for so many plays that therefore they could keep the stops down to hold the Ravens to 19 points. Ultimately, yeah, it stinks when you give up so many third down conversions. It stinks when you give up the yards, but it ultimately comes down to hold them to enough points for you to score enough to win. And ultimately they got there. So it wasn't pretty, and it wasn't, I don't even know that I'd call it conventional, but it was enough to get the victory.
Yeah. Brian, we're talking about the Steelers defense going against Lamar Jackson. What are your thoughts on how they handled that?
I felt that they game planned really well for him. And I also felt that, they also adjusted very well in the second half too, to what was going on with like Devonta Freeman running the ball well. So I thought they did the best that they could, and they pressured him. They had 7 sacks of the man. I've never seen them get that many of Lamar Jackson. So, I thought they put together something pretty good, because we're used to seeing him, pull out in the second half, and even when this team is struggling, get better and pull it out, but they found a way to do it tonight.
Yeah, the Steelers defense going against Lamar Jackson, it's not an easy task, and everyone wants to talk about, the sacks, and he's thrown a lot of interceptions in the last few weeks, but, ultimately Lamar Jackson is probably still one of the greatest playmakers in the National Football League. He's the guy that when you give him the ball with a minute and some change left and you have some timeouts, you're thinking they can easily get in Justin Tucker's field goal range.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone possibly going down and scoring a touchdown. And so the Steelers, in the last drive, they did give up some yardage. They allowed them to get into a 1st and goal situation. They score the touchdown to Sammy Watkins, and then they decide to go for 2. So I think this is that's a good pivot point here, talking about that decision. Gentlemen, when you heard the announcers, and I saw they went to Wang Harbs right after the touchdown, and he's putting up the 2 fingers, and he knew it right away. And it sounds thinking maybe I hope he's not saying like there's another play, whatever he has, it doesn't mean to put up 2 fingers that they're automatically going to go for 2, but I'm sitting there thinking, wow, they might go for 2 here. And they do. First, let's talk about the decision itself. Dave, when you saw the Ravens going for the 2-point conversion, were you surprised? And were you as nervous as I was?
Who wasn't as nervous as any of us were? We were all friggin' nervous. I mean, that's why the 2-point conversion that the Steelers made was so huge, because they needed to do that. And I'm like, I was even thinking like, leave it for Wangs. He's going to go for this win. Now, I saw a quote. It was quoted by one of the beat writers for Baltimore from Wang's post-game press conference, that he went for 2 because he felt like they didn't have enough corners to even finish the game and go to overtime. He was afraid that if the Steelers got the ball, there was nothing they could do to stop the passing game.
Wow.
So he went for the 2, because I think Humphrey left injured. Like he's on his way to get an MRI. I saw a report for that. So I don't know if he was ready. I don't know at what point that happened. So they were just thinking, yeah, we're not going to be able to stop them. So let's just try to win it now when we can. And a lot of people were like, oh, well, Andrews dropped the ball. No, TJ Watt was in Lamar Jackson's face and made him not be able to make a good throw and disrupted the play just enough. But
I expect Andrews to make that catch though. I mean, he's made tougher catches in his career. But Brian, I'll throw it to you. What were your thoughts on Wang going for there at the end 2-point conversion?
This guy has always had cojones, and we know that. He has never been afraid to do stuff like that. He usually does it when you're up by 35 points to embarrass the other team. That's hence the nickname that we gave it to him. But, it's probably one of the dumbest calls that I have seen in a long time because, do I really believe the excuse? Didn't Herm Edwards say you play to win the game? Well, you play to win the game there, but that sounds like kind of like I'll pull this out of my back pocket and use it as an excuse. This is why we did that. So if I'm Baltimore right now, if I'm the fans, I'm feeling a little let down by this decision because what you have in your offense. And they're typically the team when they get new life or they go to overtime or anything like that, Justin Tucker could hit a 79-yard field goal. Am I exaggerating? Yes. Am I exaggerating? Not really. That's a possibility with that guy. So all I'm going to say is really, if Mike Tomlin would have done it, we would have been criticizing him like crazy, win or lose on that one.
Dave, go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah, Brian, you kind of got that wrong. You said he pulled it out of his back pocket. No, he's continually pulled the horseshoe out of a place slightly lower. Okay, close, but slightly lower. And so they just assume that golden horseshoe has been working for them all season. And it would have been, that's the biggest thing that sometimes we don't realize, that if we're not Steelers fans, if we're just a fan of a different team watching this game, you're probably like, wow, finally it didn't happen for Baltimore. This is the kind of crap they've been doing and winning games that they shouldn't win all season. And it finally came back, and it did against the right team. And that's why I love it so much.
Yeah, I want to get a couple super chats up here. Wilson Pava gives us $4.99. Said TJ Watt, defensive player of the year, if not even MVP. He's the best Watt now and making a case to be the best overall. I mean, defensive player of the year, definitely making a good case for himself, for sure. I'm going to throw this to Brian here. Blake gives us $1.99. Says, what needs to change for us to get in the playoffs? So the win, looking at the AFC playoff picture, what does that mean for the Steelers, Brian, since you're the guy that's always doing the rooting guide?
Well, it's huge, and I'll tell you why, because the Raiders lost. The Raiders lost by a field goal in Vegas, so that means that they're behind the Steelers now. There's a very good chance that the Chiefs are going to beat the Broncos tonight, and there's a very good chance that the Patriots could beat the Bills tomorrow night. And if that happens, the Steelers going into this game at 12th might move up to around 8th, maybe, or 7th. So one, they've got to win. They've got to start winning and put together what I call the Bill Cowher streak of 2005. I think that definitely needs to happen. So the rating guide doesn't work if this team doesn't win. Yeah. But they're getting help, and the schedules from everybody else. It's possible for the Steelers, if they win, they need to take care of business, because teams are going to lose for them to get back into contention.
Yeah. Just a quick side note, everyone was like, oh my gosh, the Steelers have lost to the Bengals the last 3 times they've played. Steelers have beaten the Ravens the last three times they played.
Yep.
Brandon Keene gives us $4.99. Says, is this team not exactly who we knew they could be? If you're an actual honest with yourself fan, all injuries aside, this is a young team with ups and downs. Yeah, this is a very young team at a lot of positions that there's going to be ebbs and flows. It's going to be a bumpy ride at times. I mean, if you're honest with yourself, yeah, go ahead, Dave.
No, I was going to say, you said it from the very beginning, Jeff. You said at the beginning of the season, if any of you, if you're the ride or die crew out there listening, if you're not, you've got to follow us on our podcast platform to listen to Jeff's Let's Ride shows on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And we have a lot of other shows on there. I'm not even going to break them all down right now. But you said it before the season started, and you said it as early on. Buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride. And it is. I mean, the last 2 weeks right now, the last 7 days have showed us the highs and the lows of this team. And the thing is, we don't know if we're going to get a high team or a low team when they come out to play on Thursday or the following Sunday when Tyler W. and myself, because I remember Tyler W. is going to be there. I'll be at that game against Tennessee. And we don't know which team's going to be there. So you've got to take it as you can, see that they can come through and do this kind of performance, even though it's a bumpy ride along the way.
For sure. No doubt about it. Philip gives us another $5. Says, I'm dating a Ravens fan. And I don't want to sleep in the yard tonight, so I got to celebrate here. Wangs did a wang and wanged it real good. What a wang. Yeah, Wang Harbs. I mean, people might like him being aggressive. That's just not me. I thought it was a really dumb decision, in my opinion, when they were moving the ball pretty well on the Steelers, and I don't know. But Knight Rider 16 gives us $5, and it's a good point on the 2 points. A good timeout call by Tomlin to get the right players on the field. So you wait till they tip their hand, and then you put your personnel out there you think is going to be the best for it. Occam's Ox gives us $1.99, says Wang Dang Sweet play call. We are really just going at it here tonight. Steel Dog 88 gives us $2. Wang was trying to put Pitt out of their misery. He probably was. Probably doesn't want him hanging around, I mean, just trying to get a win for his team.
He wants that week 17 game to not have to matter. So
it might not matter.
So sorry, week 18 game. I screwed that up.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
I'll never remember.
Go ahead,
that.
Brian.
I think we're about to set an all-time podcast record for the mentionings of the word wang.
And these are just super chats, by the way.
I know.
There's even more.
Like, we need a Wang Harb emoji, Wang Chun tonight. I mean, they're everywhere. It's Wang City in here. So anyways, that's normally not a good thing, but it is in this case. Defensively, elsewhere, we can talk about the Steelers and the Ravens rushing. Like I said, Lamar Jackson led the way with 55 yards. Deontay Freeman, 14 for 52. After that, not much of anything. 25 carries for 107. Let's talk about the rush defense. Dave, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, you held the best. I'm sorry. I still think, you look back at the last couple of weeks and what quarterbacks have done running against the Steelers. You held the best rushing quarterback that you're going to see to 55 yards, and therefore they only ran for 107 on the day. To me, you did what you had to do there. That's just me.
Sorry, Brian, go ahead. I'm laughing at the live chat. Sorry, go ahead,
Brian. I agree with Dave.
Yeah, he agrees with me. Bring up the live chat, Jim. Bring it up. Bring up the super chat.
Wilson Pava gives us $1.99. Says Wang, Wang, Wangity Wang.
Wang, Wangity Wang. Instead of Wang, Wang, Wangity Wang, 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 Wang.
Wangity Wang, Wang, Wang.
Great How I Met Your Mother reference.
Yep. That's what I was thinking.
All right. Gabriel Golden gives us $5. Is now what? 1-8 without Hayden. Maybe an 0-5 run coming, please.
Yeah.
That's what people forget is, this week, the Steelers now, they have to turn around real quick because they have a Thursday night game this week in week 14 at Minnesota playing the Vikings, who just lost to Detroit. They might have also lost Adam Thielen for this upcoming game with an ankle injury. That's a big news in that regard. The Steelers get out of this game pretty healthy. BJ Finney's lost with a back injury. That was it. That was the only injury of note after the game.
Played out of his mind.
Yes, he did. And you think to yourself, well, maybe they could get a Joe Hayden back. Maybe that the Steelers were thinking, okay, he can't play this week. Maybe get him back for this next week. Dotson, I'm not sure. Carlos Davis.
He's been 3 games now. So
yeah, you're right. So, I mean, it depends on Dotson's ankle. I mean, the Steelers could be getting some help in some areas, but it's something to think about. But if Joe Hayden could return, that would be good. But Akello Witherspoon.
That's what I was going to ask. What do you think of Witherspoon, Jeff?
I tweeted it out during the game. I said Akello Witherspoon's having a good game, and then underneath the wrote, I can't believe I just tweeted that. He started, did he not? Did he start the game?
Yeah, he started.
So in other words, they put him instead of James Pierre.
It wasn't James Pierre. It was Witherspoon.
And if Akello Witherspoon could play like that, I just think about the one play that he made. I mean, he made a couple nice tackles because he's a big defensive back. He is what you want in a defensive back from a physical standpoint, and speed, size. But the play he made on the ball with Mark Andrews, I haven't seen a defensive back not named Joe Hayden make a play on a ball like that maybe in a couple years. So, guys, what did you think about Akello? We'll start with you, Brian.
Very pleased. And like Dave said about the offensive line, you're not hearing his name. You didn't hear his name much, only when he did something well. But there was nothing to there was nothing where he was a liability in that game. So I felt pretty proud of that. And we've been seeing a lot of disappointment, a lot of growing pains from James Pierre in the last couple of weeks. So Witherspoon really stepped in.
Dave, what do you think about Witherspoon?
Yeah, and I mean, some people were critical that he didn't come down with that interception on that throw to Andrews. If he doesn't knock that ball away, that's a touchdown. I mean, he was right there to play it and get his hands on it. And I'm just glad that he didn't miss it enough that it still made it through. So I feel like he tackled well. I from the first watching, and because this is a game I can go back and watch 6 more times, because last week I didn't watch it again. I just couldn't do it. This one I'm ready to do, and I feel like he was doing what they wanted him to do, and that's the biggest thing. Not just making great plays, but also being where you're supposed to be at times. I'm not sure if that was him or Cam Sutton that came up when Minka got called, where he had to recover and got the pass interference called on him. That was because the corner came up. I don't know if they were supposed to or not, and I wasn't even sure which corner it was. But either way, I way better than what we had seen from him. What was that was against the Raiders?
The Raiders, yeah. He was the one that was following Henry Ruggs III into the end zone.
And if it took him that long to get acclimated, then so be it. But it's nice to see to me, he earned a helmet for the rest of the season now.
Yeah, for sure. And you're thinking about the fact of if Hayden can come back, if Witherspoon's turning the corner, which is just one game. And everything I've heard about this guy has been that he is unbelievably inconsistent. I spoke with the 49ers people when the Steelers got him. That's what they said, inconsistent. Talked to the Seahawks people when they got him. What did they say? Ridiculously inconsistent. So I'm going to need to see it more than one game. But let's also talk about another newcomer, and that's Montravius Adams, who has been with the team for 48 hours. They give him a helmet, say, get out there and play nose tackle, kid. And he plays well. He ends up having a pass defense, 2 tackles, 1 solo. He wasn't Casey Hampton out there, but my goodness, Brian, what did you think about him?
Wow. Fantastic to see this guy just batting balls away. I think did he bat 1 or 2 balls?
Yeah,
one.
He was backwards.
In there on some tackles on the yeah. No, I mean, he definitely has some fire in his belly, and I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you get a chance to prove yourself. I mean, you were on the practice squad for the Saints, and the Steelers say, we want you, and they put him on the active roster, and they put him out there. That's a lot of trust. Dave, what do you think?
Well, he was on the Saints active roster up until the middle of November, and then they moved him to the practice squad. So he wasn't just some, poor schlub that couldn't end up on anybody's team. I think it might just be that he's a good fit for what the Steelers wanted him to do. I'm going to be curious to see exactly how many snaps he played. But I will say this, that holding penalty they called on him was absolute crap. He had both arms extended on 2 guys. He was keeping 2 guys occupied, so they couldn't go get the linebacker, and they called him for holding. He didn't have a hold of either one of them. It was a terrible call. When even Tony Romo knows it's a bad call, it's a bad call.
Yeah. Napoleon and Rags gives us $5. Dave, you see something from
this was the next one I saw from him.
There you go. It's a win, I guess. That works for me for sure. Let's see here. Monster 19 says Witherspoon has the size, just needs consistency.
Amen.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Everyone says, you got to have you over 6 feet to be a corner. This guy has every bit of those physical attributes you want. Some other defensive players that stood out. Chris Wormley, listen to his stat line: 5 total tackles, 3 solo, 2.5 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits. TJ Watt is a monster: 6 total tackles, 5 solo, 3.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 6 quarterback hits. The Steelers ended the game with 10 quarterback hits. And here was another interesting statistic: 9 tackles for loss. Cam Hayward had 2. Alex Highsmith had 2. The sacks obviously get registered as such. Guys, just quickly, let's just talk about any defensive player you want. The defense stood up. I thought that the defense, you can talk about the last drive where they gave it up. And my gosh, they kept this team in the game when the offense was sputtering. Literally sputtering. And so, Dave, we'll throw it over to you. Just final thoughts, I guess, on the defense. We'll do final thoughts later, but on the defense itself.
I put a tweet out there yesterday because the Steelers fans so many of them were so down on this team after last week. They deserved all the criticism that they got. But I felt like they started to go too far. The reports come out about Ben Roethlisberger, thinking that this is going to be it. He didn't use the R word, but just didn't think that it was going to be a mutual, both sides want him to come back again next year thing. And everyone was, poo-pooing on him. TJ Watt gets cleared from the COVID protocol, and people were complaining, "Oh, it's not going to matter. He was terrible last week. He's probably still injured, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, even if he doesn't come out here and have the big statistical game, the Ravens have to account for him. Instead of going after whoever's going to be where TJ Watt was supposed to be, now they're going to be going away from that. And not only that, he still came through and had 3.5 sacks and all those tackles and the tackles for loss and the quarterback hits and all that good stuff. So, thank you, Trent Jordan, for, without practicing all week, stepping in and showing what you can do and get your name back into that mix for Defensive Player of the Year.
Well, if you read the article I wrote when the news broke on Saturday, I said that this, he's nursing that knee and hip injury still. He wasn't 100% against the Bengals. Not practicing, he's proven that he can play, without practicing week 1 against Buffalo. And also, maybe that was like the best thing for him to kind of just stay away from practice. Look, just rest and relax, get your mind right, and then come back. He's proven he can do it. TJ Watt's a monster. Brian, final thoughts on the defense, just the defense.
Guys that we have not mentioned here, one that comes to mind is I thought Alex Highsmith had a very good game too. I mean, it pales in comparison to what you saw with Wormley and TJ. I mean, but another guy I want to talk about, and we've talked about him a little bit, but Minka was Palomalu-like back there. Minka was Carnell Lake-like back there today. I mean, he was a superstar again as a safety. And I got to tell you, he is so important to that defensive backfield as well. You've got superstars on every level of the defense. You've got Cam, then you've got TJ, then you're throwing in Minka in the back, and other guys are getting inspired by these three, and they're really making plays. One thing that could really hurt TJ Watt in the Defensive Player of the Year award race, it's Cam Hayward. That's one thing that might cannibalize his votes. I know we're not talking about that now, but that's when you have 2 potential Defensive Player of the Year candidates there. You have 3 potential all-pros on that defense, and a defense that is struggling. You've got something good. So when a Hayden comes back, when you start having these young guys getting their heads into the game and saying, "Hey, yeah, I'm on the Pittsburgh Steelers and I'm starting to feel this now." I'm not saying that this is, a lack of excitement, but just the fact that, all right, I've got this. I'm a part of this, and I'm watching Tuska out there too. Did he have a great game? I'm not saying he did. I'm not saying he didn't. I'm just saying I'm watching him and just the expressions and calling a penalty on the other team, and they're really ingrained in what Pittsburgh Steelers defense is supposed to be.
There you go. Yeah, Blake gives us $1.99, says, "What's our biggest weakness? Wife and I love yins." Thank you, Blake, for the tip. We appreciate it. Biggest weakness right now, Dave, what would you say it is on offense? You're muted. And
sorry about that. My dog was barking in case you couldn't hear that earlier, and I didn't think you wanted to continue to hear it. So the biggest weakness on offense.
Yep.
I still think it's the consistency now, because to me, I would say the biggest weakness before was the offensive line. The offensive line played well today and showed what they can do. Now they just have to be consistent with it.
Okay, Brian, our biggest weakness on the defense.
It's still the middle of the field. It's still stopping the run a little bit. There was some, you were playing an extraordinary running quarterback today, so I can excuse some of that, but the rush defense needs to get better. We haven't seen spectacular play out of the inside linebackers, and that's something that we like to, I thought they were better today, but it's both Bush and Schobert I thought played better today than they have in past weeks. But what I'm looking at really is just trying to fine tune that defense as far as everything goes, and just get a little stronger on the tackling. But the middle of the field, I'm not talking about the front line, but the middle linebackers, the inside guys, I'd like them to get stronger. And they didn't have Bobby Spillane either today.
There you go. Tate Boys says one got to go, Taco or Tushka. I don't know why anyone has to go. I don't think they're going to get rid of anyone. Like they're going to keep, that's their 4 guys. I don't think there's any need to get rid of any of those. Tom Muir gives us $6. Sorry, I'm late. $1 for every W, and what a W. Defense was big when they needed to be. O was 2. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Thank you, Tom. We appreciate it as always. All right, gentlemen. It's been a good show. We didn't really talk too much about like Chris Boswell's point afters or anything like that, which have been an issue. I didn't want to talk about officiating. I figured we would dive into that more within our shows this week. A reminder that our shows this week, the preview, which is the 3 of us, will be on Wednesday. It'll be earlier than Know Your Enemy. Everything else is pretty much status quo. So, Dave, final thoughts.
Oh no, I'm unmuted. I'm good. I got it. My final thoughts are, I just realized I still have my terrible towel around my neck. Steelers fans, this is the ups and downs with this team. You were completely ready to write them off last week. Now, was this a fantastic win? Absolutely. Does this mean that this team has completely righted the ship and they're just going to roll all the remainder of their opponents? No. But we know that they can. We know what they're capable of doing. It's not that it's all fallen apart. There's nothing else to salvage this season. We've seen what the possibilities. Now that just has to be executed game in and game out. Don't worry about if they can beat the Chiefs. Don't worry about if they can beat the Browns again at home. The only thing the Steelers have to worry about is this short week going to Minnesota. This is a tough one. I picked them to lose this game at the beginning of the season just because it was so tough to travel on the short week. Now you've got the Steelers coming off after a Ravens game. I was really happy that with the injury update after the game, that was surprising after playing the Ravens. I expected it to be so much worse. So that's good for going into this week. Then you've got a team that they're dealing with injury. All that matters now is the Steelers just need to get it together and show up on the field to play again Thursday night like they did this week, and can just don't even give themselves the possibility of having a performance like we saw last week.
Brian, final thoughts.
You know what? I'm not in the live chats of the Tennessee Titans and the Buffalo Bills and teams that are having some adversities here and there as of late. And I'm not. I'm in these live chats and I'm on this network. And I think about what the Steelers are doing. And I'm really proud of how they came back from that drubbing last week. And it's really funny because a lot of us kept on saying, and even people in the chats, a lot of people were saying that, all right, even though they got killed, this is a team that matches up better with a team like the Baltimore Ravens. And this is a team that could absolutely win this game. That's why when TJ came back, I changed my pick to the Steelers winning. I had the same score, and I figured it would come down to a field goal at the end. I had no clue it was going to come down to this, but I just felt good all week knowing that they were going to play this game. And there was a part of me that thought when Mr. Harbaugh went for that extra, that 2-pointer instead of an extra point, there's a part of me that said, all right, this is where you head the rest of your season. You stop this, there's nothing stopping you at this point. And yeah, did he drop it? Possibly in Andrews, but was it forced like you both mentioned earlier? Yeah, TJ forced it. They forced that situation at the end. They sacked up and they beat this team, the team that they take pleasure in beating more than anybody else. So I know that I'm walking on a cloud right now. And I've got a lot of stuff to do after the show, but you know what? I'm going to do it smiling. And when I go to bed and when my head hits that pillow, I'm going to be replaying this game, and my REM sleep's going to be nice tonight.
I couldn't say better. 3 guys that live in Maryland. Trust me, this is a big game. Gabriel Golden gives us $2. His defense's biggest weakness is injuries. I'd say that is across the board for the entire team. Wilson Pava gives us $1.99. One last one. Who's the bigger Wang, Harb or Romo? Well, it's Harbs. It's Harbs, yeah, for sure.
Contest.
Brandon King gives us $1.99. Our existing inside linebackers should be much better next year. One would hope that they would be better next year, but there you have it. All right, hey, Steelers win. It was crazy, 20-19. Hope springs eternal for the Steelers fan base. Make sure you check us out at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, wherever you get your podcasts. Search Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtains. Subscribe, follow, whatever you have to do so that you don't miss a thing. We will see you on Thursday night, Week 14, after the Vikings game. Go Steelers. We'll see you.